Well, thank you, Jason Krawczyk. As far as we know, folks, maybe no relation, maybe a relation. Hard to say. Krawczyk is a big group of people. But Jason, thank you for stopping by, taking some time out to talk about your film. Don't mess with Grandma, or I like the title Sunset Superman. So.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm jazzed to be here, and it's a cool channel. You've reviewed He Never Died, right? Like years
Yep.
ago.
Yeah,
And
and
yeah,
she never died as well. I
oh,
reviewed.
right
So
on. That's
yeah.
great. That's awesome. I'm glad to be back. But yeah,
So there's some eyes on it anyway. So right?
yeah. People are still digging it, and yeah, and like, yeah, I for sure love the title Sunset Superman more than Don't Mess with Grandma. But 2B needs some help with search engine optimization, so I understand what they're going for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
So
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was just gonna say. So if you wouldn't mind telling my listeners a little bit in your words what "Don't Mess with Grandma" is about.
It's the short elevator pitch is Michael Jai White defends his grandmother home from a home invasion, which is what it's about. It's a little bit more than that, though. Uh, Michael J. White plays JT, who's a heavy metal enthusiast who also works for like a Meals on Wheels type company. So you see him kind of go through the menagerie of what his day's like, and then he goes home to his grandmother, who lives 2 hours away in a secluded cabin, but she no longer has health autonomy. She needs help like
Yeah.
daily, and
Mhm.
it's kind of eating him away. Uh, and he's like trying to work up the courage to ask her, like, "Hey, do you think it would be like, would you enjoy assisted living? Would you like to like something in those regards?" But she's a bit of a curmudgeon, so he's kind of avoiding that at all costs. And then there is a home invasion. There is a robbery of sorts led by Billy Zane Stan, and Michael J. White, JT's character, is doing his best to defend the house from a home invasion while keeping his grandmother oblivious to that said home invasion.
And he's a little bit inebriated as
And
well.
he's
So
drunk. Yeah, he's
yeah.
been he started drinking and like it's already happened. So hopefully you're in for a good time. There's a dog. There's stunts. There's some tomfoolery.
Well, I dug it. I wasn't sure what to expect going in cold because with indie action films, they can be a little bit hit or miss. But I loved the whole vibe and everything you were doing with this film, especially how we open it and we're introduced to the JT character. You establish pretty quickly this is a nice guy. He's got he's got kind of a heart. He's not just this former ranger who just wants to put his grandma in a home so he doesn't have to deal with her necessarily.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
you know,
And I think I want them to make it because like when you have low budgets like this and you can only do so much, like
mhm,
we went as far as we could, but we shot this on like the time frame of what you would usually shoot like a Hallmark movie at, and then we have
sure.
action and comedy and a dog and cowboy pictures and stuff, and like you got to cover all that. You got to cover it in cool, creative ways that help tell a story. So like having someone like Michael Jai White, who is as talented as he is, and he can like do the broad spectrum of comedy and drama and action, he was the best too. He's like a genuinely talented and humble human being, and he seemed like he had a lot of fun. He's very like composite that character. Like
Mm,
he is very sweet and generous. Uh, Especially when it comes to stunt stuff, he wants to make sure like people get like some kind of showcase.
sure.
And so like yeah, it's he's a wonderfully talented dude.
Now, was he, because you wrote the script as well, was he in mind when you wrote this script, or did you kind of go through vetting process, or?
There was a no. I started writing it with no one in mind. I was like, how am I gonna get this going? And then like halfway through it, it was during the pandemic.
Mhm.
Uh, my husband and I were watching a movie, and we were like, holy shit! I put on Black Dynamite, and they didn't know that Black Dynamite was from like 2008.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
they thought it was like from 1976. So they're like, what is happening? This is bizarre. And then like that and Bolden, like, oh, it's gotta be Michael Jai White, man. Like he's smart, he's funny, he's got all the chops, he could do this. and I've been a fan for a while with Blood and Bone and Spawn, and
Hmm.
I remember seeing him in Universal Soldier 2, and I was like, who the hell is that guy? Like, what is that? And then so just being excited by that, I talked to my casting agent, my casting director, who has been with me for a bunch of movies, and I love them dearly. Adrian Stern's her name, and I was like, "Hey, what do you think about Michael J. White?" Because like, how many people can do a role like this?
Right.
And they're like, "You know what? Let's do it." And then we sent it out. We didn't even ask. We didn't ask producers. We didn't ask like Tubi or anything. We just sent out an offer for Michael J. White, and he said yes. And then I was like, "Oh man, I'm gonna get a talking to about that." But and then and but he was he was the best. He was worth all the risks involved. It was awesome.
See, that's the wonderful indie spirit. You
Oh,
know
yeah.
who you want. You just went for it. You said, you know what? I'll ask for forgiveness versus permission. There you go.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's unfortunately kind of the tone of Sunset Superman because it was such like a work from the heart, right?
Sure.
It really helped that came down there. And like we were talking about before, like since you don't have a ton of money or time, you got to make all these characters as likable and three dimensional
Mhm.
as possible, just so the audience has something to like root for and be interested and not be bored that wasn't an action sequence, right? Like you got to be like, oh, all right, I kind of want to know what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he really helped set the tone for that for the film, and then we get into meeting Grana, and Jackie Richardson is amazing in this film. Tell me a bit about her. Uh,
Jackie Richardson was the best. So the way the shoot would go down, first of all, she was like one of the like top tier. Like it needs to be her, or we just
right.
don't. It was like it's like Professor X and like it was like if they say no, then I guess we're not doing this. Canadian soul singer,
Yeah.
endless charm. Like it makes so much sense. But she's also a very sweet humble lady who has a lot of ideas and she wants to implement them and which wants to make sure everything is the deepest it could possibly be. And the thing that I thought was always kind of funny about this is like we had to shoot overnights, right? So like the
Mhm.
whole movie takes place at night practically. So like our schedules were like from 7 p.m. to like 10 a.m. in the morning or something. So it was like it was nuts. But like the last like 3 or 4 hours was all the Grana stuff. So like
Mhm.
we would be doing like weird prop. We were doing like weird prop falls and stuff, and all this like action sequences and stunt coordination had to go off at night, and like people screaming and blood and all this shit. And then like, and at the end of the day, we'd all be so tired because we were just been like, all right, time to do like a Coen Brothersy like Richard Linklatery Grana scene, and but she would become in so like happy and just happy to be there and excited to be there and like really into the material. Like we got to do it for Jackie. This movie just gonna plow through it. She's so nice. Like this is nice for her. She's doing such a nice job.
And did you pull any influences for the Grana character? Because I mean, when we meet her and I see her, I'm like, I want to go over to her house, even if she has corn chicken chowder with no corn or chicken in it.
She was more related, like not like a fictional character, but she was closer to my like Polish grandmother and my dad's side.
Mm,
She was always kind of tough but fun, and she'd always make food, and I did like in she. So that probably her the most, and she was always working on her yard and stuff. Like she was never like not enjoying her. She was never
sure.
enjoying herself. She was always like working on something, and but she was fun to be around at the same time. So like I kind of she definitely inspired by that. So that's really cool to get on screen, and like it kind of shows like that like love but exhaustive relationship you could have with parental figures, where like man, I would kill for you, but at the same time you're killing me. Like this is exhausting. You're exhausted.
Yeah, because they're set in their ways for so long that it's like you can't deviate from that. And
Yeah, and they're starting to diminish, and like they need help, and you're doing all this invisible work, and that was kind of like what I wanted JT to kind of go through. Like you're doing all this invisible work to make sure they're okay as they're aging, but they don't see that. So they're kind of like or well, you're good for nothing. Like you're just like and I don't know. That's where a lot of the humor comes from, and she got that right away. And then so that was very sweet. So did Michael J. White.
It's funny you mentioned about food and your grandma making food, Polish grandma, because yeah, my grandma loved making food as well. Polish family here as well.
Yeah,
You know, and yeah, it's like I got to try all kinds of different foods, but you know, which to me I felt normal because growing up with grandma, she just hear cow's tongue, you're like, oh, hey, tasty.
yeah. There was a lot of that. There was like
You know,
duck blood soup and stuff, and
yeah.
yeah, and
Kishka and all of this, you know, or the cannibal sandwiches. Oh, during New Year's, we'd actually have some in Milwaukee. They knew a deli that they trusted with it, and it's like. And then I described it to my friends when I met them in college, and their eyes would get big, and they're like, "Wait, an actual tongue from a cow?" And I'm like,
yeah.
"Yeah,
And it's like weird to like describe it because like if kids didn't eat like tongue anything, you're kind of like yeah, it's like you're chewing the texture on your tongue. That's your tongue, and it's like it's weird to feel that. It doesn't taste bad, but it's awesome. Um,
but yeah, you know." And so with grandma, with Grandma and uh, Grandma cooking her chowder, I just love that element because they're always cooking something
they're
usually.
always working on something. They're constantly working. They're not.
Yeah.
They're the house is spick and span from as soon as they wake up until they fall asleep, and like and yeah, and it's hard to keep up with that.
It is. Now, now we have a band of thieves in here, and I'm gonna say I loved the thieves because they weren't what I expected in this film. You know, when you talk about the setup of trying to prevent robbers from coming to the house, I'm thinking of a little bit more heavier thieves. But these guys, they've got a little bit of a dark side, but so much humor to them, especially Billy Zane, who I saw Stan. I forgot at first that that was Billy Zane. I'm like,
he
wait.
vanishes. He vanishes into that because like when we first talked about the character because we didn't really get to see each other until he flew in. Like
Sure.
we had so like I saw him in the day he was going to film, and then we were kind of going over it. I'm like, these are semi-normal people just stuck
Mhm.
in a weird situation. The more you try to be serious and fail, the better it is for the humor. So like, try to consider it like, yeah, bye, we did all that. And then he was kind of like, yeah, I kind of want to do this though. and and I was like, well, I mean, I guess. And he was like, yeah, I mean, like, stay in the parameters of this, but like, and then like, but it was the first time he was just like, he like someone was just like, no, I want to do something else. And then I was like, okay, I don't really have time to argue with that, and pays off. He does a really good job. Because it's not like if these were really menacing,
Yeah.
like home invaders, it would definitely like it wouldn't fit with the JT potential.
Mhm.
So like the fact that they have to be a little bit more, dangerous and dark, but like have a softer edge of incompetence to them, just for someone like JT to defend it. Like it was like it's like the closest thing to like if there's a home invasion with me, what kind of home invaders would I need to have for me to succeed? And they'd be late and they'd be way less competent than the ones that are even in this movie. So like
Well, they were very Midwest thieves. They had a
yeah,
very Midwest vibe to it.
yeah,
Uh, I'm like sitting there going, because I live in the middle of Wisconsin, so I'm looking at this going, yeah, this tracks.
yeah, yeah.
This is the group of people in the middle of Wisconsin trying to pull off some kind of home heist, and when they meet any type of resistance, they just short circuit and have really no clue how to handle this.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I wanted to capture, like the people of the more rural areas of the world, like that also have crime, but the crime's kind of low level because like you don't have much to go with. So like that, I think that's kind of fun. I like that. Like I grew up in like a small town in New Jersey. It's kind of what it
Sure.
felt. Yeah, and then but they have like their crimes like someone's like smuggling pizza, like it's like stuff like that, or like they're selling like jerseys for a concert or something. Like it's like, and like that kind of crime is kind of like weird and not innocent, but like almost innocent. Like it's fascinating.
It, yeah, it's one of those to where it's low impact crime is what it feels like.
Like those guys who sell like stereos in a parking lot, like outside of a Best Buy. Like what? Like those guys are criminals still, right? Like,
I don't know. You see Best Buy, prices. Maybe they aren't so criminal.
maybe not. Yeah.
So yeah, and you have such a ragtag group who just keep getting bigger, a wide range of characters. Uh, did you pull any of these characters from like people you know or whatnot, or that you interacted with, or were they just just spawned from your brain?
These guys were more spawned for my brain. I don't think they were really inspired by anyone
Hmm.
in a personal sense. But I do love like just people who kind of like I love like the camaraderie of like angry banter at each other. Like I think it says a lot about who they are as people and what their dynamic is. Like it tells a lot of their stories without them,
Hmm.
right? Like you can kind of like, oh, they must have like some kind of family dynamic and they work together because they know how to communicate in ways that only shows up from experience, and that stuff always kind of inspires me.
Hmm.
Like you ever watch like the show Home Movies, like the that was
Oh.
on Adult Swim?
Hmm.
They have a really good like bantery, like ad lib dialogue to them, and they have a really good like uh, setup. I mean, bait setup joke
Hmm.
mentality, and it kind of comes off so naturally. And I'm like, well, if I can capture that, I can tell their story pretty quickly in like the confines and not like alienate the audience like stupid. So, like, that was
Well,
kind of that was kind of that. I just wanted to see like arguments that tell a story. And,
well, that's the impression I got with the thieves was is when you very first meet them, I was like, oh, are they going to just be the bumbling, almost like our Home Alone type thieves, But they weren't. They just felt like real people trying to do a crime poorly.
yeah, that's kind of what all of my stuff kind of like. What is the vampire movie for the modern
Sure.
man? What's like it's Jack. It's he never died.
Yeah.
He's walking around like in a modern, just average environment, and
Going to
like
bingo.
yeah, exactly. Like, and I think like, and I don't like. That's why I didn't want a movie that starred like a Navy SEAL or like a
Sure.
hot ops. And it's not a huge heist. It's like it's a fairly like normal group of people trying to do their best and failing. And I think I think that makes it more relatable. So like, I kind of like even if I had like a huge budget, I would still play on that that level of POV. That's a fun, cool way to do it because we need our little heroes and our own little adventures and our little lives.
Well, and it kept with the vibe too, overall. I think if you suddenly got a little bit more too like straight, normal, like severe, heavy criminal or whatnot, it totally turned the vibe and kind of feel a little bit different. But you maintain this wonderful, playful atmosphere with this film to where I think the audience can relax a little and go, "Oh, I could relax and not, outside of one scene, which, folks, not a spoiler or anything, but I will just say a human is not the most vicious killer in this movie."
It's a good time.
I did enjoy the dog character quite a bit and the dynamic between the dog and JT. How difficult was it? Because you always hear about don't work with animals or kids. So,
Yeah, and uh, Rumor was the name of the dog.
mhm.
This was her first movie. But yeah, this was since it was our first movie. Like we were all kind of like, we need to make this dog kind of fit with the rest of the cast. It can't be a movie dog. It can't be tilting its head. It can't be like doing awesome tricks. It just needs to be like kind of like a oblivious dog that's just trying to help. And so we got that down, and that helped that they weren't like so strict. They did take
Sure.
them because like a film set's like a construction site, like
Right.
everyone's talking and people are eating and talking, and big heavy things are moving. So like the dog gets used to that, and then when you're like, all right, quiet on the set, and everyone stops talking, like, and then they're trying to like coax the dog to do stuff. Like it's kind of freaked out. Like it's just like I don't know what's happening. Like there's plenty of footage of like when we say action now, we're all kind of like, "Hey, buddy, it's all right. Yeah, we're trying to like we're gonna have to ADR. We have to ADR this later. So like let's pretend we're still working so this dog can like fall."
So the dog's more comfortable. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's kind of what happened. And there were some times where like the dog was spooked by something. I just you just feel bad. You don't want to traumatize a
sure.
dog. Like it's so different when you traumatize an actor by accident. Like, you know what the you know, you know what they're in for, and they're and like and then I can apologize to them and they can make sense. But like a dog, I'm just like, yeah, you have no idea what this is even for. I'm sorry.
You don't know what's going on. You're just like, you want me to chew on what? Okay.
So yeah, they did a great job though. They're a good dog. Everyone likes that dog, so I'm pretty happy. And he was a very sweet dog. He was not. He was like the rumor was the least vicious dog on the planet.
Well, then he's a good actor because he shows some attitude in this film for sure.
Uh,
Uh, you know,
yeah.
and what I also liked was the house felt like an older house. Did you have to do a lot of location finding for it? Because I really enjoyed the house was like another character. It felt like it's an extension of the grandma.
Yeah, thank you. We tried to make all the color schemes like match the
Mhm.
grandmother's too, and like make sure like it had like everything was not like a bold color, but like it had like layers upon layers on top of it, so it kind of like massaged out a bit, and just a little bit more uh, diluted.
Little almost sepia color to it
Yeah,
in a way.
everything
Yeah,
sounds good in there. And like it would, and like every room would have like its own color scheme. Like with the living room would be very green, the bathroom would be really blue, the attic would be very like purple, and like so we also wanted to like establish like you can learn where the geometry of the
mhm,
places because when you have color codes like that, it kind of helps. But also because like the way we shot the movie is not like the house at all. Like, we had to build it in editing. Um, so like we had to take a lot of precautions to just like show where the camera ends, like when you're moving when you're following camera characters around, just so you can like build the geography of what the house is supposed to look like. Because it's not because like the attic is in a barn somewhere else, and the bathroom's downstairs instead of upstairs, and like the
sure.
happens in a different room. And then but like finding the house to do that was a bit of a trick because like there were times where we were just literally like our location manager just like got to a point where like he couldn't find the right place for this. So we just started like looking. We just started like looking at houses and knocking on doors, and and it's like it's a terrifying experience because like you're gonna shoot in X amount of weeks and
Right.
you don't even have a house yet, and you're like the like 90% of the place like the 90% of the movie takes place in this house. So like you're kind of stressing out, and then we eventually found this one, and I was like, I don't know, I don't care what it takes. Can we try? We try our hardest to get this house, and we did, and it worked out. And then like uh, our production designer went inside and like gutted the whole thing out so we can have these long camera shots and all this jazz. And he brought his own little charm to it, and he made sure like one of the I hate saying like new furniture in
Yeah,
movies like and like he was like yeah the everything in this house is minimum 40 years old
sure.
and he ran with it and it came out really well.
Yeah, it really felt like her house. It felt like she had been there a long time.
And it felt like it looked lived in, right? Like it's it's supposed to tell a little story of its own yeah, and I'm really proud of that came out.
It had some character, much like the bear skin that had character. Did you guys make that, or did you find that at like a thrift store or something? Or...
That was another thing where like we tried to we shot this in upstate Canada, right, in Ontario. So we're like, all right, we need a bear skin. Where do we go?
Down in the corner?
Like we did the average stuff where like we go to antique stores and we
Mhm.
check out what the you know there's some certain places that just have like prop centers and stuff that just have props there that you can rent from, and they didn't really fit the vibe. And then we found we could buy an actual pelt from a an indigenous heritage museum.
Oh,
Yeah, and we are like, well, let's give it to them. Like, if we're gonna pay for this, let's give it to them.
yeah.
And we could help this out. And then let's event, and that's what we did. And then since it was so nice, we didn't want to like screw it up as much as it did in the script, so we just like made it look as silly as possible with the.
The googly eye. I love the googly eyes on it.
Since we were just like renting it from a museum, we couldn't
Sure.
screw it up, so we did our best to like keep it
Uh,
alive. I'm glad the money went to a nice.
yeah, when you were constructing the script as well, what I liked was where it ended up is not where I expected it to, especially with certain characters. How much thought is that a challenge to just maybe not take a very easy step because you could have just had everybody, all the bad guys leave, but then we get some gray area characters, but then we get some other dynamics in here, and so by the end you're just like, oh, this ended quite more adorable than I expected it to.
Because he was like he's doing the tenacity of kindness thing. Like he is punching people, but only if he absolutely has to. And like I kind of want to have some kind of reward for that. Like it's
Sure.
just and to have him just like all the bad guys leave and then he's just beat up by himself in the house.
Right.
I think it's kind of nice to see like he's doing something so well. Like that it's so unexpected that it's wearing down the other side in a way that's not physical. I think that's kind of a nice touch. Like he is what he's doing is working to a degree. Versus just being violent and like not I don't want to take like I like violence in movies, don't get me wrong. Like I think it's cool that that's a thing, but like for a movie like this, for like what the story is,
Hmm.
I was just like, yeah, well, he can still kick ass and be a nice guy. Like those things aren't like mutually those things aren't mutually exclusive. He can be gentle and intense if he has to be. Those are two, and like so yeah, I kind of wanted to, like it's like in his tenacity, endurance for this kind of stuff, kind of wears people down in the right ways.
In the right way. Especially, I one of my favorite, I think, dynamic between bad guys and our good guy, or bad guys in quotes, I should say, but was Pam. I really liked. I thought Pam was a very interesting character. What went into constructing the Pam character?
Well, I always wanted like a romantic interest that wasn't like this is inappropriate. What are you doing? But kind of like charms them to a degree towards the end of it, like because they keep realizing he's an innocent dude doing his best and like that. And I thought that was a fun, like not even like wrote like they shouldn't kiss or like go on a date or anything, but I just think it's fun that like they're just kind of flirty. Um, and then I think it's even funnier that like their ass Pam is just not into it at all.
That's what I loved about the Pam character. I'm like, there is someone like that in every small town that is just very, unique individual who is not like everybody else, who is just not into what everybody else is doing. They're just like, this is ridiculous, some Hicksville type.
Yeah, and like they're probably not having the best time in their environment, especially for like who they are. And then like there's a guy who's trying to flirt with her during a fist fight, or them during a fist fight, and it's inappropriate, but it's also innocent and
Yeah,
gentle. That's kind of the fun part about that. And S is the best. Uh, they're a treat. Pam was originally like a lady in the script, and then
mm,
he read for it, and they're non-binary.
sure.
Uh, I didn't want to make them feel uncomfortable, like, and then, I did another Michael J. White maneuver. I just asked uh, them if they would like, hey, if I just made the character non-binary, would that make me more comfortable? And they're like, oh yeah, that'd be great. I'm like, okay, here we go. And I was like,
Whew.
and I was just, but I was like done, and I did it, and then I was like immediately after, like I'm gonna have to have a conversation about it.
No,
Uh,
I thought it was a
uh,
very interesting character, and I love the relationship that ends up kind of the connection that ends up building between Pam and JT. A bit unexpected, but it was wonderful as well. I liked because it was just enough. I was happy you did that just enough because I see some films that go too far right away, like, oh, just that instant, like, really all levels of attraction. And here there's just this, like, if they hung around each other long enough, it might, something might go on.
exactly. It's kind of like maybe in the future they would probably go on a date, but like not at this moment.
Right.
I think
Or,
that's
and it's one of those where they could go on a date or become best friends, and either way, you'd be happy with the turnout with
yeah,
their relationship.
yeah. Neither of them would be disappointed in that. Like it's just one of those. Like they had a bond and it was
Mhm.
innocent, and that's kind of nice. And I think that I know there's a spectrum, there's a wide spectrum of relationships we could have. Like why stick it to like they have to make out and married? Like I don't think that's a thing.
Yeah, I'm like that's kind of a road less, more traveled. It's like that's the real easy route. But what you have in here, I thought was very unique, and I appreciated it quite a bit. What I also appreciate is you shooting the action scenes. A lot of directors shoot really close, regardless, to try to cover something or whatnot. You've got a lot of nice wider shots here with your fight scenes.
Yeah, that's Teague Fong, and like they're the stunt coordinator.
Mhm.
Like they did previs, they talked to everybody, they brought their own guys in. A lot of the actors, S is one of them, were recommended by because a lot of these actors are stunt actors. Emily's a stunt actor,
Sure.
Dave. It just helps, and like stunt actors like getting lines. They like getting stuff to do that's silly or weird or have a little bit of an arc. So like I want to make sure that they're all covered in ways. Um, but yeah, I was talking to Teague about this, and we're like, he's not like a John Wick. Like
Right.
he's more like a brawler. He picked up stuff from because he was in the special forces, but he never really got into it very long. And like he was probably a bouncer, and he was probably like he was probably like a security guard at like a venue for a while for like metal shows and stuff. Like he's got all these like tips and tricks. He knows how to like move bodies around. He's got a knockout punch. Um, and then we worked with that where he has this more brawling style and he's fighting more than a few people at a
Hmm.
time. Like, but it's also like these stunt guys are really good. Michael Jai White is a wizard. Let's see them do it, and like let's have these phrases that kind of interconnect like a big old jigsaw puzzle that makes like a big finale, right? And then we did it, and it came out that way, and I was really happy to see that. So like, yeah, people might be like, yeah, it might not have like the gravitas of like, you know, a John Wick where he's murdered 100 people, but like it has like a gritty, like a gritty, just down and dirty vibe to it that I really like, and I'm really proud of it. It's got some eye pokes in it. It's got stuff I think.
I love that. I love that. But well, and again, it was fitting for the overall. I thought it was fitting for the overall tone of the film of what it felt like you were going for with it. Is it too that if they were extraordinarily violent fights, that it be out of place almost. Whereas you have them observing, you have two people observing him fighting other people, and they're actually commenting like, "Wow, how much punishment can he take?"
Yeah, and like Indiana Jones was
Yeah.
a good for T because I was just like he's not a martial arts wizard
No.
either. Like he's also not. He's using his environment. He's more aware of his surroundings. He's more just trying to survive than he is trying to hurt people. And that was kind of the stance to take with that, and it helps. And I like the Spielberg stuff with Indiana Jones was a big inspiration about like the
Mhm.
causality of a movie, like one thing triggers off another, which triggers off another that comes back to it in an end. And I was like, I gotta imbue this small movie with as much of that as I possibly can. just for like the adventure of it. That's the fun part.
It is like a little adventure all around one home, which is a feat in itself to keep things interesting when you're in one location for 90% of your film.
Sure, yeah.
But it definitely kept things interesting. So to put you a little bit on the spot, who would you say was the most fun character to write?
Oh, JT.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that he's drunk. I like that he's a semi nice guy. I like that he talks to himself. I like that he talks to the dog. Um, I try to give him like like a little bit of a little bit more like self-deprecating humor,
Hmm.
uh, just to like propel him a bit because like he's been alone a lot, so like he's going to have weird, dark thoughts sometimes, and I think that's a fun thing to kind of like. I think it's a charismatic thing to try to like traverse. I like JT a lot. He's got a wide range.
And yeah, it comes across on screen for sure with him. And JT was a character that I was pulling for right away. So if that's what you're going for, I think you accomplished it at least with me because I was like, yeah, I want this guy to succeed. And then when we meet the thieves though, and we got to know them a little more, I'm like, I want them to go away. I don't want them to get hurt anymore because
And like I kind of wanted to make the yang to the ying of he never died, right? Like he never died. Like Jack's like the worst thing that's ever happened to humanity, and like the villains he's dealing with are generally despicable. And I was like, all right, well, like I had a good time with that, but I need to like I want to fit it a little bit, and like I like testing the waters of stuff and trying new stuff out. So I was like, can I make a nice he never died? It was really like,
yeah, now I can kind of see that it's kind of a nicey he never died. And yeah, it's kind of the polar opposite. It's like you had you have the bell curve, and you have on one end you have he never dies, and on the other end you would have Sunset Superman. So there you
yeah, not saying I don't want to go back to darker, meaner
go.
stuff, but at the same time, I'm like, there's plenty of oxygen out there for nicer stuff that's still entertaining. Like, I think that's there's a lot of shades of tone out there.
Yeah, nothing wrong with doing both. I mean, and exploring things. I think creatives have to get out of what they might be known of occasionally because you never know what you might enjoy more. You know?
That or like you pick up tools from one that can benefit the other and all that jazz. So like, yeah, I like experimenting with stuff. It's a good time. It's neat to learn about yourself as you're doing it.
Sure. So, so what would you say was like a scene you had it on paper? You said you didn't have a whole lot of time to shoot. You didn't have a whole lot of time to really get with the group. But was there a particular scene or moment in the film that you thought was just going to be so complicated that this is going to take forever, but it actually goes off without a hitch, that you were just really happy with it?
I kid you not, the opening invasion scene where like
Really?
they come in and then when JT fights them all off and he
Hmm.
doesn't like he like just destroys Stan. I mean not Stan. He just destroys Ted, who's played by Evan Stern, and like with introducing Carl and Emily and all this stuff. It's a really like extensive scene where like a lot of moving parts are happening at once, and they all have to be like under the guise of being quiet for grandma. So like it's like we're paying off the premise of the movie in this like three versus one like decimation scenario. And we've talked about it. Griffith and I, James Griffith's the cinematographer. We shot List to death. Where like we go with the movie's made three times over before we actually start shooting it, and we've talked about this scene and how to shoot it more than any of them. And then when we got to it, like it was an hour. I couldn't believe it. Like we had to go get some pickup shots a little later during the week, but like
Sure.
I couldn't believe we got that amount of action, that amount of like intricacies
Mm.
of that fight scene in there. We got a knife in there. We got a whole argument in there. We get like multiple beats. Like we have multiple beat downs from multiple angles and multiple like camera gags. And I was like, I can't believe we pulled that off. It's really unlike, and all that stuff's free as long as you're like prepared.
Yeah.
So like, so that was. So that really inspired me to like push the envelope a little bit more for
Hmm.
one, more complicated sets, but two, you don't need that many people. Like you could still like pull it off with a small like intimate setting. I like people being like alone or just one on one. I think it's a neat environment and like gives you room to like do some, semi poetic things with how you shoot them.
So some character moments and such as well. Yeah, yeah. You need some of that. So, but yeah, I mean, this film I think is a lot of fun. I had a blast with it. It is different from your other two, which I enjoyed. I loved He Never Died, and I loved She Never Died. Is there going to be a third one?
Not that I know of.
Oh,
Tried everything. We swung for the fences with that. Like we pitched a mini series to as many. It's like we pitched that a lot. We were all over
sure.
town, so I thought for sure we were going to get it, and then it didn't happen, and that was really kind of devastating. And that's one of the reasons, like I wrote Sunset Superman. It was
Mm.
just cathartic to write, to not live in the He Never Died world for a minute, and yeah, no, there was. I don't think there's going to be room for a third one. I don't think. Not that I've heard, but if someone reached out and was like, "Hey, let's talk about this," I would definitely go to that table.
You have a plan,
I had
or had a
him.
plan. Had a plan, I should say. But well, even the first two, I have a blast. They're unique films, and I dig the concept. And yeah, Sunset Superman. You have that lone person, who's the nice guy though this time more so.
Yeah, yeah. And
He, he's not drinking anybody's blood, but he is.
anybody gets its sustenance. It's pretty nice. No, it was a nice tone to set. Made a lot of great people on that one. I had a fun
Mhm.
time, despite it being like it's still an enormous. Making a movie is an enormous pain in the ass, no
Yeah,
matter what. You can still have a good time doing it. Kind of like how you can be gentle and intense at the same time. It can still be a pain in the ass and endearing to go through.
yeah. That's why you always get that fun question whenever they ask some star or even filmmaker, if someone wants to get into this business, what would you recommend to them? And they go, anything else.
Yeah, like it's different when you're in it now because like I've been making movies for 15 years or so. Like I've been working on movies for 15, 20 years, and I'm like, I'm in it. I can't get out of it. Like it's just like
This is my life now. I'm sitting down just having coffee and I'm thinking, wow, what camera angles could I make out of this?
and like and so and a lot when it's good, it's the best. When it's
Yeah.
bad, it's like unbearable. But like you got to do it. You got to figure it out. Um,
So,
it's a lot of
so who
shows.
would you say has been one of your biggest inspirations in your filmmaking journey? Did you have just one, or did it change over time? Or
Multiple, and it always kind of changes. I would say like the grand poobah of that's John Carpenter. I think
mm,
he's amazing. Because I also a few things I like his attitude. Anytime I hear an interview, anytime I hear his political thoughts, anytime I hear his like storytelling, anytime I hear like his storytelling credentials or what he likes to do for art, like it's just nail in the head every time. Like I like everything he says. Um, and like his movies are they're so wide in spectrum. They're such
hmm.
like they like I mean the thing's a masterpiece, but like Big Trouble in Little China and Halloween and like even Prince of Darkness and The Fog, like they're also like singular, right? They're not like there's just no other movies like those movies independently, and I think that's really cool. And they all have a vibe. Like
Hmm.
they're all like you just put them on and you don't have to like you go about your day with John Carpenter movies in the background. You're just fine. Like um
I always like I always tell people the highly recommend the audio commentary. I think it was on the Blu-ray or the DVD of A Big Trouble in Little China, to where it was John Carpenter and Kurt Russell. They managed to get together in the same room to do it. And they've been good friends for years, you could tell by this point doing the commentary. And I think only maybe 50% of it was talking about the actual movie. Otherwise, Carpenter comes in, he's like, "Oh, so how are the kids? How's the wife?"
you can feel that in the movie, like they're having a nice time making this movie, and then like and that's a great commentary because Kurt Russell's like laughing the whole time, and they're having a nice time remembering this movie, and I think that's just a treat. Um, I don't know, and yeah, other when it comes to other inspirations, like I really like kind of like the sad men
Mm.
walking around being sad genre, whatever that is, sad, and so Wim Wenders and Tarkovsky and all that, I really like. But I also like the Paul Verhovens and the John McTiernans. Like I love Die Hard, I love Predator, I love RoboCop. RoboCop's my favorite movie. Like even the James Camerons, I still love Terminator 1 and 2. Like those are like form like and Aliens. Are you kidding me? Like that's foundational stuff.
Yeah, Terminator 2 is one of those that range of years. So many films influenced me. You had Batman, Burton's Batman. You had Terminator 2. You had so many interesting, influential films in there. But Terminator 2, I remember I watched it. I became obsessed with it. I love Terminator, but Terminator 2 was one of those that I've got the script book somewhere. I've got the deluxe VHS that they came out with that had the extra hour of like footage.
Yeah. Oh, those movies blew my mind, man. Like as much as I like the dry, talky
Mhm.
stuff, I still love those. I'm still trying to make those. Like,
Did you see Pig with Nicolas
oh,
Cage?
oh yeah, I love Pig. That
Oh,
was
that's one of his best films, I think.
yeah,
Uh,
he's in it, and he's so like small. Like he's really restrained in it. Like there's a couple of times where he does like some explosion, but like he's so like naturalistic, and it's that's a perfect walking around sad guy movie. Like I like those too, but I also like
we also like you have 30 seconds before we use physical force.
yeah, Pig's man. That's one of the best movies I've seen in like the last 5, 10 years. It's so good.
Yeah, it because when you mentioned the sad guy walking around, that's instantly what popped into my head. I'm like, oh yeah, that was Pig. Pig was definitely one of those.
Nicolas Cage is a good actor, but he still kind of surprised me with that. I wasn't ready for like how like naturalistic it was in that.
Yeah, it was different for him, like you said, restrained, but he let just enough of Cage go occasionally for you to let remind you he's still Nicolas Cage, but the story was intriguing. I'm like, what is this world that he's in?
Yeah, like this like the Portland underground food scene that's also like quasi the mob and oh god, it was crazy. I loved it. Oh my god, that scene when he cuts that guy down at his own restaurant is like
Oh,
oh my like I like my stomach dropped.
yeah, it's and those are, fun films, and so is Sunset Superman. Sorry, Don't Mess with Grandma. Uh, either way you want to spin it, but yeah, that's definitely something worth to watch. It's out on Tubi now. And what's next for you, sir?
Uh, there's a casting call going out right now for my next film, Roommates, with eight, no, it has 10 O's and that, because it's about a guy who moves into a haunted house and can't afford to leave. Breakup. That'll be fun. I'm excited to like do all these practical ghost effects and stuff, and
Hmm.
that's gonna be a good time. I'm really, really excited for that. But that shoots in the summer, so I'm jazzed.
Cool.
So it's gonna be fun.
That sounds interesting. Is it tough to write comedy? Because I mean, you've wrote like very heavy dramatic stuff, like with He Never Died, and then you have Sunset Super, where you wrote it very more comical in spirit. Is it tougher to write comedy than drama?
Yes and no. Because drama, you want the drama to be real, and for comedy, you want the comedy that kind of like misdirect you or like hit you from the side, right? So like the thing about the comedy I do is mostly people trying to be serious and failing. So it does have to have like a setup and payoff to a degree. And I like banter too. I just like people talking in rooms. Like I like seeing people figure things out on their own, and I kind of like seeing the internal story kind of
Mhm.
generate. So like that helps me write in a level of this magnitude because I also well, not I like it, but also like it's more of a little character piece, right? So like you kind of want to see what happens to them no matter what. And like everything's kind of just set dressing, fun set dressing that means something, but like it's you want to see JT succeed, not necessarily how, just you want to see him
Right.
do well. And like yeah, when I write comedy, it's mostly I try to tell myself I'm not writing a comedy. These are just funny circumstances.
Sure. Yeah, I've seen some of those films. Growing up in the '80s, we had some wonderful parody films. I mean, Airplane and Top Secret, Mel Brooks's Spaceballs, and all of those wonderful earlier parody films. And then you saw later parody films that tried to replicate that, and they just fail because it was just one gimmick, and then we're just going to get to this gimmick, and there was no real actual like any type of attempt to really get a story.
But like your thing is like with like Airplane, the guy has PTSD about flying planes, and he's the only guy who can fly the plane. At least there's something there. There's something there to conquer and get over and figure out. And like in Naked Gun, Leslie Nielsen's character, there's a trilogy of those movies, and there's a theme to that entire trilogy about beginning like in a romantic relationship and what that means, and like giving up your job for your family. And so like you can say those movies are fun and silly because they are, but there is something like tenuous keeping it together.
Yeah, and I think a lot of modern attempts miss those points that you don't have that, and it's like that's what made those special. So, well, Jason, I know you're a busy guy. I don't want to keep you too much longer. I appreciate your time for sure. And where can people catch you, keep up with to date with your stuff?
You can reach me on Instagram. I think I'm jason.snurb there. You could also reach me out on Twitter and Blue Sky. Twitter is everyonequestion.com. That's the number one. And Blue Sky, I think, is Jason Snurb again. Trying this Blue Sky thing. It's not. Oh, yeah, no, it's just my name. Jason Krawczyk on Blue Sky.
You got in early, so you could use your name.
I gave up on it because I signed up for it. And I'm like, I don't need another social media app months ago. And then, like, with recent elections and
Yeah.
stuff, I could use one that's a little gentler, please.
I think we all could. We all could. Well, thank you, Jason. Everyone, please check out Don't Mess with Grandma, Sunset Superman, out on Tubi. I believe that's the main point place where it is, correct? Out on Tubi
I don't think it's out there yet. I think it's out there next month.
next month. Okay.
But yeah, it's mainly on Tubi. But if you're in Canada, it'll be on Crave, and it'll pop up. Someone told me it'll be on Prime. I'm not sure if that's real, but I think it'll be.
We'll just take their word for it, but if it happens.